My name is Adrian Nantchev, and this channel is all about helping you become a remarkable entrepreneur. So this podcast, Become Remarkable, is all about bringing people from around the world, whether entrepreneurs or not, to share with you their story, their inspiration, their journey. So today I have with me Surf Yogi. So please, Surf Yogi, tell the audience, tell us, who are you, what do you believe in, what's your story, and what difference are you making in the world?
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet you, and we're finally speaking. I guess you met me on Steemit, which is its own ball of wax right there. Most people won't know what Steemit is, but it's a new social networking site, and it tries to marry together cryptocurrency and blogging together, something like a Reddit. But many people think it's possibly even going after Facebook because it's that big of an idea. It's a new killer application for the internet, and I don't think I've seen anything like it since the web itself came to the internet. So I have a long background with the internet. I was on the internet before the web was invented. Then my very first Macintosh, I ran the first Mosaic browser. And I realized this is going to change everything. This will change how governments are created and run and managed. This will route around censorship. This will change humanity. And I believe Steemit is another such invention where we can take the best of the financial world and peer-to-peer economies and actually engineer a new economy that could possibly bring a new level of financial freedom to humanity as well through being creative. So I think in the past, being a creative person myself, it's been very frustrating. How does one make a living doing exactly what they want to do creatively versus many creative pastimes that will make quite a bit of money if you choose to go that route? So I did. I became an engineer, became a web developer. And once I saw the web, I knew I will make my living from this, and this will be my new career. And I had no doubt, and that's what I've done for the last 20 years or so. So now I happen upon Steemit. The founder actually called me about an engineering job, and he explained to me what Steemit is, and I was instantly taken by it. I instantly understood exactly what it meant. So if you don't have a background in cryptocurrency, Steemit may not mean much to you. The first time you look at it, it looks like Reddit or any other similar blogging site, Medium, Quora, but the marriage and the engineering of cryptocurrency into that type of genre creates a place where you actually get paid for your work to post there. So you might imagine if you were working for a newspaper as a writer or a magazine as a writer or blogging and having advertising pay for your work. Well, Steemit rewrites those rules entirely. Now you can post, you can be paid for your work. There is no advertising, and it's an engineered economy by which you might actually become able to make your living. That said, I have a blog, Surf Yogi, on Steemit.com. And there we go into many different subjects. You know, I started out as a musician, and I wanted to be a very creative music writer. My parents are musicians, but I realized very quickly becoming a music teacher, they recommended I do not do that. And becoming a professional musician, I realized is not really going to work out with a family. Either you decide to marry music or you marry a woman perhaps, but it's probably not both. I wanted a more normal life than living on the road. So I chose engineering, and I chose a creative path with the web, and that's led me now to cryptocurrencies and Steemit, and it's really changing my life entirely around, I guess. Maybe not, it's just a new tool that changes the rules, and so it's very liberating and a great deal of fun to investigate. There's an entire ecosystem built around the Steem token, the Steem blockchain, and the main the main application is Steemit right now, but there will be other clients that will allow posting to the Steem blockchain, and this becomes somewhat uncensorable. It's not like the EU can just mail Facebook, Steemit and tell them to take down a post. This is a blockchain. It's an immutable database. It's an immutable ledger. Those posts are not going anywhere. Now, Steemit can choose to mute this data and tuck it away where most people won't see it, but it's always there. And you can point to it if you want to, and you can show it to people. So in that respect, an immutable database is an entirely new beast that we have really not reconciled with our governments of the world today. And I believe that's coming, and it could get a little negative before it smooths out, actually. So that will be interesting to witness as well. I don't know, are we on topic here still?
Yeah, it's great. I'm just curious about a few things. I think
sure.
for Facebook to be killed by Steemit, though, I think it's got a long way to go with regards to functionality, because I like the underlining basis, the way it's monetized, and all meritocracy on Steemit. But my main quarrel with it is the functionality, the UI, what you can do with it. It's a bit lackluster. Admittedly, it's still in beta, and it's about a year and a half old, but I think it's got a long way to go with regards to polish.
Well, Facebook took 10 years to get where it's at, and it was with a great deal of outside investment, almost unlimited resources, and there just seems to be no end to the money that an engine like that can create from other people's works. Other people's posts get monetized, and that money actually goes out to investors and the owners of the company, and the people who actually post to it don't make anything from their work, and they're actually followed around on their cell phone, and they're advertised to by which stores they went into at the mall today. So this is an entire reversal. If we look at something called DTube, it's actually just launched last week, and it allows video posts to go up to the blockchain with an address that lives in a peer-to-peer cloud, and we're talking about unstoppable applications, okay? So it's going to mushroom out so fast when people find out about it. It's going to just blow up. And they're running it on a cloud server so that when it does blow up, they'll be able to handle it, because that's the only way you'd ever be able to handle that kind of volume that's coming. And so when we see DTube married to Steemit, married to another mobile app called eSteem for mobile, we're seeing an entire new ecosystem. It's not one site. It's an ecosystem built around a blockchain that is unstoppable. So ponder that for just one moment, because that changes the rules.
Yeah, because I didn't fully realize this until probably the last month or two, but how much of a paradigm shift blockchain is, and I didn't really start to get back into blockchain until like March of this year. But I knew about Bitcoin as back as 2014, when Bitcoin was around $200, $197, if you can remember that. So I started to realize how much of a paradigm shift it is. But this DTube and eSteem, firstly, is that what it's called? DTube? Exactly that?
Yeah, DTUBE. And I'm not sure of the extension. I'm not sure if it's .com or .io or whatever.
Yeah. That's fine, but a week ago, I must get onto that now. After this podcast, I must get onto that.
Yeah, this is like 5 days old announcement, but it's really, everybody's saying this is going to tear down YouTube, if you can imagine that. It's possible. It really is possible. We're taking a monetized, commercialized site, and we're replacing it with peer-to-peer networking, which we all know is extremely powerful.
Yeah, because I joined Steemit because of how early and young it is. The attention on there and the engagement as a marketer is very high. So I can create stuff, and a lot of people will see it and consume it a lot more so than, say, on YouTube or Facebook. And I also know that getting on it early, in the long term, early adopter, I can see the distinct advantage it will have. So that's why I jumped onto it. And this DTube sounds
Right.
really fascinating, and same with eSteam as
It
well.
really is. Well, DTube is another game changer, and it really puts Steemit at the ready to go after social networking at large. But the other thing I wanted to say is right now, there's about 300,000 users on Steemit. And so right now, it's this smart, savvy little group of very intelligent people. There's virtually no riffraff. There's virtually no negative types of hounding, and it creates a new social order by which we are all motivated to participate, follow the rules, be good citizens, because to not do so means you are shunned, and therefore your work is ignored. So it really does create not just a new financial order, but a new social order that goes with it. And right now, it's this beautiful little community, and I'm afraid the way it is right now, it won't last. And so I'm really trying to enjoy it while it does last, because this is the time to be networking, meeting new people, and really enjoying Steemit before it blows up and it's so big. It's just like YouTube, and it's kind of spoiled from what we will remember.
Yeah, when you said it won't last, I thought you meant like it'll get shut down or something. But it mean like
its character will change.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And speaking of which, I'm waiting for library.io and view.ly, Viewly, to go up and running. But DTube, that sounds pretty cool. Hopefully it's just like with Steemit, where I can just post stuff on there, not have to download and install something, not have to put a deposit down like library.io does. So those are a bit disappointing with that. So I'm looking. What is eSteam exactly there? You mentioned mobile or something like that?
Yeah, so there's one developer who, trying to remember his name, Good Karma is his name, and he has a mobile application. I'm really not sure about how it's being written technically. It may be using the Facebook library called React Native, but sorry, that's a little bit of engineering speak there. But anyway, it's the first client for Steem blockchain for mobile that is, in a installer format of an application rather than just bringing up the web page, which also works on mobile as well.
That's good. Anything that makes it easier to get onto the platform and to share stuff, that's really good.
Well, I happen to know that Steemit is also working on their own mobile apps, and I don't know that they've announced that, but it's on the roadmap, I believe, and they do have a public roadmap document for 2017.
I never knew that. That's new to me. And going back earlier, you said that Steemit changes the rules, and in this world, the world that we live in and all that, why do you think it's good for the rules to be changed? Why do you think the rules need to be changed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think first and foremost, whenever I go out on the web looking around, I get assaulted by advertising, and I don't like it. I don't watch television because I don't like commercials. I find there are better ways to spend my time than watching a marketer pitch to me. And so if I want to live in an environment that doesn't have advertising, Steemit really fits the bill, first and foremost. Second of all, I support free speech. And I don't like the fact that the EU thinks it can just dictate to Facebook and other social media sites what they can and cannot post. At some point, we have to say enough. As humanity grows and it learns to tolerate each other's viewpoints, religions, and so forth, then we must abide by censorship-free publishing on the internet. And if it takes going peer-to-peer, if it takes unstoppable applications, if it takes blockchains and immutable databases and ledgers, then so be it.
Yeah, definitely. And recently in the UK, we have this thing called a TV license, which is arguably government's permission to watch television, to watch certain channels, and to watch certain live broadcasts, whether from within the UK or from abroad. So you need government's permission. You pay around 150 quid a year for such thing. But under certain parameters, you can not pay, but you just can't watch certain channels. It's essentially government-sponsored racketeering almost. It's quite bad.
Let's consider the cause of war. throughout man's history. The cause of war are rich men who control governments, control media outlets, and decide that it's time to rally the boys and go pick a fight. And there's a lot of money to be made being a government that can wage war and has the largest army on earth. And you can support worthless fiat currencies by having such types of armies. And you can basically point a gun at people and say, you owe us $60,000 the moment you're born. And then from there, we'll sum it up every year and decide.
Oh, all right. Yeah, definitely, I agree. Definitely. And speaking of rich people and control and the world, earlier you mentioned that Steemit and the blockchain creates a new economy and creates a new social order that facilitates financial freedom. Can you elaborate on that at all, please?
Yeah, I think, these are not my ideas. And I'd first and foremost like to say that one of the founders of Steemit and the Steem blockchain, the actual designer of the Steem blockchain, his name is Daniel Larimer, and he's really quite an anarchist, and he's really quite a guy. I'd say perhaps the most intelligent person I have ever witnessed speak, not live. I've never met him, but if you look at his and try to interview him, but look at his interviews, and you will see that this is his design. And it's so well thought through, and it took him a long time to come up with this, and he didn't do it by himself. He's surrounded by other geniuses. So he's like the uber genius, and then he's working with several other geniuses. And so that's what it took. And his idea is that we can use peer-to-peer networking and these types of communication devices and new applications, killer apps on the internet, unstoppable applications, route around the need for laws. They route around the need for government. They route around so many things we've come to expect because we were born into this world and they existed the day we were born. And so we have not even come to question so many of these things. And he looks at it from the ground up. If we were to take an economy and design an economy, and if we were to take a social media and marry these two, then how could we engineer society such that everyone wishes to participate and be a good citizen? Well, what does that mean, and how do we motivate that? And how would people be able to make their living being creative and writing or posting their art or posting their music or whatever their creative motivations lie?
Yes. Please go on.
Oh, no. Please ask some more questions because I'm never sure if I'm talking too much or going out of bounds. So.
That's all right, no worries. Someone from a previous episode, I can't remember who it was, said that I should really get Dan on the show. And yeah, I agree. It would be a very interesting guy to interview and talk to. We'll see at the end. We'll talk about that at the very end of this.
Sure.
But speaking of Steemit, though, you said that you blog on there and you blog all over the place. There's no real structure. What do you blog about exactly?
Yeah, I'd like to go over that just real quickly. I'm a serious amateur photographer. In previous life, I was a professional musician. I still study music. I've studied the history of music and the greatest performers in music. And so I post quite a few historical cuts from various different musicians' albums. Just as historical documentation more than anything. These are musicians. And then I talk about cryptocurrency. I talk about computer graphics and engineering. I buy cameras and test them out and put up the results. So that we really go all over the place. I wrote a book 20 years ago on how to grow cannabis. I threw that up there. And I had originally published it on Usenet before the web. And that book has circulated all over the world. I think it was the most authoritative work on growing cannabis for at least 10 years for free on the internet. So that's up there. So we talk about just about everything. We talk about what Daniel's up to because he's inventing new projects every few years. So he has a new project called EOS that will probably be maybe a competitor to Ethereum. So that's his latest task or his latest project, and we talk about that quite a bit, just in general in the community.
Yeah. I'm curious though. What was this book called that you wrote?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's called The Joys of an Herb Garden at Home. And I saw that it was translated into several languages at one time. It was posted by other people on the web. I never posted it on the web. I just put it up on Usenet before the web was invented, and then it took its own course, and I could tell many people were reading it.
I've never heard of it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
never heard of it.
Yeah.
I'll check that out sometime. But I'm curious then, what is it you're working on now, and what are you up to?
Well, between engineering jobs, I like to fiddle with Steemit and post every day. I like to understand the different ecosystem of applications that are built around the Steem blockchain. And I'm trying to network and make some new friends. All my friends in real life, around me where I actually live, they're either afraid of Steemit or they don't understand it or they're too busy. So I'm actually making a lot of new friends on Steemit. It's actually a really fun place to hang out, meet new people, and a lot of new opportunities there. So I'm really not sure yet, but this is still pretty new for me. I've only been on Steemit less than 3 months now.
Yeah, roughly the same for me. I joined in June of 2017. And people at first said it was like a Ponzi scheme or it was a scam or a pyramid scheme or something like that. And it's like, well, no, it can't be. It's not possible because there's no initial investment on your half. There's nothing you put down. It's just a platform you can contribute to. And through, I'm thinking that it's, or the way I understand it is that by contributing, you're expanding the blockchain, and by people upvoting you, that's the equivalent of mining the Steem dollar, and that's where you can monetize it. And the value of the Steem dollar, and like most peer-to-peer networks, is derived from the network effect. So the bigger the audience, the bigger the community, the bigger the more amount of people using the platform, that creates its value, because every person there is eyeballs and attention and a person and someone's potential target audience, and that means that they have got wallets in somehow, or it can be monetized indirectly through working with people. And I think that's very powerful, and that's why I see and I believe and I agree with you with regards to a massive paradigm shift and a challenge to Facebook. But I believe it still has got a long way to go. And I also think that blockchain and Steemit technology and other blockchain, cryptocurrencies in general, are today. They are where the internet was in 1998. So in the next 4 to 7 or so years will be a real paradigm shift and real change with what's happening and how the world perceives cryptocurrency, and a lot of potential for it to go mainstream. About a few of the things with that later on, and like I think I need to have the right kind of a coin that has a lot of virality built in and a very ease of use, and that any business out there in the world can simply use like on the fly very easily. So it's not, and I joined it because the people. It's new. And I joined it when it was around 250,000 people, and there's roughly 1,000 every day joining. So it's probably a bit more than 300,000, but in that vicinity certainly. I joined because there's so much, so it's fertile ground for content creation and for blogging and getting a word out there and getting a name out there. I think I joined it at the right time because I couldn't join it any earlier. I wasn't yet getting into the swing of things. And I'm glad I joined it now because I'm seeing some consistent growth on there, and I really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people the wondrous thing about Steemit is that it is a green field. You can basically fence off as big a property as you can use, maintain, and patrol, so to speak, and it's yours. So it's just such a green field of possibilities there right now. The other thing I was going to say is that the basis of cryptocurrency really does derive its value from the community that encircles it. And so that's why we see, I first talked to people about Bitcoin and they told me it was a Ponzi scheme. And I said, you don't understand the technology and you don't understand what creates an economy. You don't understand what creates currency, and therefore you think it's a Ponzi scheme. But it's really just the same thing that happened with the U.S. Post Office being replaced by email. We take value that is surrounded by a community of people that accept it as having value, and that's where it derives its value from, as any society must have some mechanism of doing so.
This is the problem I had with it in 2014. As I said, when it was like $200 for a Bitcoin. We're at like 4,000 plus now, aren't we? I was unsure what it was. I didn't understand how much of a paradigm shift the blockchain was, and I viewed it as a bit of a snake oil salesman. And up until around 4 months ago, just shortly before I joined Steemit, I thought it was still a case of the greater fool theory, where the only value in it is there's someone who is willing to pay more for it, and that's what I thought the entire thing was built on. And when I talked about that, more or less same weekend or a few days later, I realised that no, it is a shift with regards to network effect, decentralization, peer-to-peer, undermining. It's not a resistance to the status quo. It is creating a new status quo that makes the old one redundant and obsolete.
Exactly, and the thing about cryptocurrency is that it's heating up right now, and the reason it's heating up is because the Russian government wants to mine it, and I would imagine the U.S. government's been mining it for some time, and China is the biggest miner of Bitcoin, and so you can see where this is going. Once everybody wants in, who's to say what the possibilities are for a price in the future? And then at some point, does the US dollar become redundant becomes a question. And so it's almost like, I want to get out of my US dollar investments before they become worthless.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely. I saw a chart that said that by the end of this year, it'll be $3,000. That chart was was a little off, but yeah, and I think by the end of 2018 or 2019, it'll be 10,000. But I think, judging by the rate as the past few months, it's going to reach that maybe a year from now, 12 months. I've no idea. Maybe 12 months from now, it'll hit 10,000 Bitcoin. 10,000.
Because we're looking at an arms race here. Is what my point is basically. It's a new arms race, right? In some regard.
You mean an arms race between the governments to own more Bitcoin, have a larger share of the pie?
I don't think that the U.S. government can live with China owning Bitcoin. I don't think Russia wants to live with the U.S. government and China owning all the Bitcoin. I think it will become somewhat of a new gold standard, and we all know that these governments like to pile the gold.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure what to say to that. I agree.
Think about it for a while, because it takes time to really ingest all this and be able to absorb everything that is happening so quickly. And unless you speak with people who are keeping their finger on the pulse, you're not talking to the right people about this subject.
All right. So 2 things then. What if another cryptocurrency comes along and undermines Bitcoin and replaces it? What's it?
Well, it already has. It already has. It's called Ethereum. No, not really. I mean, there's new competitors. Ethereum is a huge competitor now to Bitcoin. It's up and coming, but it's a bit of a sloppy job from an engineering perspective, and a lot of engineers I know feel the same way. I certainly feel like Ethereum is full of bugs. It's got a lot of problems, but it's the biggest competitor right now to Bitcoin, and thus that makes it valuable. And then we get into the idea of smart contracts, and then we get into the idea of replacing your lawyer with an automaton. So, we can keep talking about this all day long, and what it really means to society and to humanity and to automation and to jobs. You know, we have to restructure because robots are going to be running the world pretty soon. So we have to restructure what are our primary motivations for society, actually.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently, I think episode 18 or 19, and he was talking about how there should be a universal basic income because automation is well on its way, and rather than going for 100% employment, we should be aiming for 0% employment because the automation and automatons, as you described them, will replace the workforce, and that means what are humans going to do? So we might as well have universal basic income to then say, go out and do the things you love. But my kind of counter-argument to that is, if you're an entrepreneur, you'll find ways to monetize the things you love. But that's going off a little track at the moment. But what did you mean exactly by smart contracts? Because to me, that's just like app development and integration into existing structures and mainframes.
Well, if we take the idea of an immutable ledger, first of all, a blockchain, and then we add a programming language to that blockchain, we can now write secure automated contracts with immutable details, and nobody can try to wiggle out of this contract, and it requires multiple signatures, and then some sum of money is then delivered once all approvals. So it takes the place of escrow. It can take the place of handoff of a product for a fee. It can take many different formats, but what we're basically looking at is the blockchain can serve us with so many different applications on top of that blockchain. So the blockchain can become possibly this trust of value store, but also we can write applications on top of it, and Steemit is the perfect first example of this, of attaching an application to a blockchain that creates value innately within itself. And so a smart contract can be something, whereas I don't want to use a realtor and I don't want to use an escrow service, and I might just write a smart contract with the homeowner, and now I purchased the home, and and we both agree that, yes, the home is now occupied by its new owner, and the funds are released, that type of thing.
Yeah, and speaking of Ethereum, because you mentioned it briefly, that it's very buggy and it's not a bit sloppy from an engineer's point of view. So what is wrong with it exactly? And what can we learn from it to make something bigger and better?
Well, primarily, a blockchain must be immutable. And if it's not, then it's really not serving its purpose and thus cannot be trusted, perhaps. And so the other thing with software, though, is there are bugs. And so you've got hackers trying to hack it. You've got bugs that they find and they break in and steal people's wallets, this kind of thing. It is possible. And so it did happen with Ethereum. There was a group of investors. They wrote a smart contract called the DAO. This is all part of Ethereum history. You can look it up on Wikipedia. But basically, they decided to fork Ethereum, just like Bitcoin recently forked. And they did that so that they could reset the blockchain to deal with this bug and the hackers that had claimed a lot of Ethereum for themselves. And when they did so, a lot of people felt like, well, now Ethereum is not trustable. We can't trust it. And, that's a perfectly understandable initial reaction. However, Ethereum has been able to not only maintain its value, but it's skyrocketed in the last year.
Oh, yeah, cool. So,
and then Daniel Larimer is working on a competitor called EOS. And so that is actually one of the more interesting things going on in the sort of Steam crypto world is EOS. But I'll just put a little plug in there for Dan because I respect his work so much, and I'd like to see him be successful with EOS.
My only criticism with EOS is because as an investor, when everyone is talking about something, when everyone's greedy about something, saying this will be it, this will be it, this will be it, this is it, is that not a little cause for alarm to say take a step back?
Yeah, sure. Of course. And always question something that seems so irrevocably popular and find out for yourself and do your own research. I had I had sort of a panic attack one night when I realized that I had invested quite a bit of money in Steem and Steemit, and I had not really looked into the background of its founders entirely. I had a little panic attack, and I spent all night doing so. And I got over it, and I realized, these are some of the most brilliant people on earth, and I want to support their work. So that's where I came out of this. But you have to look at Dan's track record. He built BitShares, he built Steem, and now he's building EOS. He is the world's greatest known authority in cryptocurrencies today, cryptocurrencies and their applications thereof. He is the world's foremost authority, in my opinion. And so if anybody can do it, he can. And he is the one who is the primary criticizer or critic of Ethereum. And so if you read his criticisms of the design of Ethereum today and its future design that is coming for next year and being planned right now, he has a great deal to say in his critique of Ethereum. And I believe all of that work will be going into EOS. So Dan's invented things like proof of stake. What is a DPoS? I'm decentralized proof of stake. I think that's it. Sorry, I'm forgetting my terminology on occasion, but that's really a replacement for proof of work, which is an entirely new way of organizing a blockchain. And so much of this is outside of the scope of a small interview, but I would just say look into DPoS and what that means in its evolution. We're talking about application-specific blockchains, and we're talking about much greener blockchains that do not require thousands and millions of CPUs pumping out guessing keys to blocks. All that goes by the wayside, and it becomes much greener, it becomes easier to manage. And these are third and fourth generation blockchains we're talking about. So they are orders of magnitude of improvement over the original Bitcoin.
Yeah, wow. DPoS, I must look into that later on. It sounds very fascinating, very curious. With regards to the person behind the thing you're talking about, in this case Dan, the founders, I've come to realise that once a con man, always a con man. So I want to always be sceptical and looking at who they are and what their history is.
Yeah, well, as far as I can tell, Dan started at this at a very young age. He's from Virginia, and he's been at the Ethereum conferences for several years now. So he's really put in the work, and he's become the authority through his own hard work, which is widely recognized by a large community in the cryptography world.
Yeah, must get him on here sometime. He has remarkable stories to share.
Yeah, good luck. He's a busy guy, but who knows? You might just pull it off. I hope you do.
Yeah, there's always a way around it. But as we begin to wrap up this podcast, what is next for you? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think with any new career, any new pastime, any new project or new chapter in life, you won't really know exactly right when you first start. I'm throwing a lot of paint at the walls. I'm making a lot of new network connections and friends. And I want to see what sticks. I want to see what people need. I'll probably try to fulfill some sort of need in the Steem community at first. And then I may go on to other applications that are tied to other blockchains as well. I'm very, very interested in application-specific blockchains and the applications that can be built on top of blockchain. So I'll just continue my research and do what I've always done, which is simply pursue that which intrigues me this given year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential. This peer-to-peer blockchain. I like it a lot, and a lot of industries will be interrupted by it. So it's a fascinating future.
Yeah, but first and foremost, the Federal Reserve Bank.
Yes, exactly. But as we wrap up, what is the best way for the audience to get in touch with you?
You can join Steemit, and you don't have to join Steemit to read my blog. So you could go to Steemit. It's STEEMIT.com, and then @ SurfYogi, just like it sounds, SurfYogi. And that's actually a metaphor for surfing the internet and being a guru of the internet.
I thought so. I thought it had to do with guru, but I thought it was like literally surfing guru, something like that. Like on the waves.
Yeah, it's metaphorical, but I try not to be real egotistical about it.
That's all right. Well, I will. That's all right. I'll add this link in the description below. But Surf Yogi, it was great having you on the show.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks for having me. And I look forward to seeing your future broadcasts as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
All right.
But, ladies and gentlemen at home, if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button below and press the bell notification right next to it. And if you're watching this on Steam, however, give me an upvote and also follow as well, because either way, there are plenty more videos and podcasts to come, because this channel is all about helping you become a remarkable entrepreneur. So go out there today and do something remarkable with your life. How cool is that?